Thursday night, Thorne came home to silence. Not unusual. Sometimes Violette worked late, came back at 9 or 10, heels clicking in the hallway while he was already in bed, reading or pretending to read. Definitely not waiting to hear her return like some kind of obsessive neighbor who'd memorized her schedule after 3 days. But tonight, the silence felt different. Tonight, it felt expectant, like the building itself was holding its breath. He made dinner, pasta again because cooking for one was depressing and pasta was easy and he'd bought enough rigatoni to last him through the apocalypse. He ate it at his small dining table while scrolling through tomorrow's work schedule on his phone. Another Greystone install, this time in the East 50s. High-rise building, luxury apartment, client who wanted smart home integration for their lighting system. Good money. 4 hours of work minimum, probably 6 if the existing wiring was as ancient as he suspected. Then Saturday, finally a day off. He should do something. Grocery shopping, laundry. Maybe invite Margot over, let her see the place properly instead of just sending her photos that didn't capture how empty it felt. Through the wall, a door opening. Thorne paused, fork halfway to his mouth, and glanced at his watch. 6:47 p.m. Earlier than usual. She normally didn't get home until 7:30, 8 o'clock. Heels clicking across hardwood, slower than her morning pace, tired and deliberate. The sound of someone who'd been wearing those shoes for 12 hours and was done pretending they didn't hurt. A bag dropping. Heavy. That expensive leather briefcase or purse or whatever the hell women carried when they ran billion-dollar corporations. Then different sounds. Cabinet doors opening, the refrigerator, the clink of glass, wine bottle probably, a cork popping, liquid pouring into a glass, generous pour from the sound of it. Then her voice quiet, talking to herself.
Long day. Long, terrible day. But at least I'm home before 9 for once.
More cabinet sounds. She was cooking. Actually cooking, which seemed unusual for someone who worked the hours she did. A pan on the stove, olive oil sizzling, the sharp scent of garlic. Thorne could smell it faintly even through the wall. Then the sound of a TV turning on. News, maybe? No, cooking show. He could hear the cheerful voice of some celebrity chef explaining how to properly sear scallops.
Yeah, like I have time for a 5-step pan sauce. Jesus.
She was talking back to the TV. Alone in her apartment, cooking and commenting on cooking shows like they could hear her. Thorne set down his fork and didn't even pretend he wasn't listening. The sounds from next door continued. Chopping, vegetables probably. The rhythmic thunk of knife against cutting board. The TV still playing in the background. That chef still enthusing about the importance of fresh herbs.
Fresh herbs. Right. Because I definitely have a rooftop garden between the board meetings and the conference calls.
Thorne found himself smiling despite himself. She was sarcastic when she was alone, sharp. Nothing like the careful, controlled voice she used on business calls. More cooking sounds, water running, pasta going into a pot. He heard the distinctive rattle of dry pasta hitting boiling water. She was making pasta too. They were both making pasta on opposite sides of a wall, completely unaware of the symmetry. The TV show ended. She changed the channel. News this time, something about international markets, trade agreements, the kind of dry business news that Thorne usually tuned out. But Violette was listening. He heard her react to something the anchor said.
That's not how tariffs work. God, who writes this stuff?
Then quieter, almost to herself.
Should have left the office at 5. Should have told Marcus to handle Singapore himself. Should have told Father that Harrison's Dubai timeline is unrealistic and we all know it.
A pause, the sound of pasta being stirred.
Should have broken up with Julian 6 months ago instead of waiting for him to get worse.
Thorne sat very still. That was the first time he'd heard her mention Julian unprompted. Not on a phone call, not to someone else. Just to herself, alone in her kitchen, admitting what she should have done. The timer went off. She drained the pasta. He heard water running, the clatter of a strainer, then plating. The TV still murmuring in the background about market volatility and currency fluctuations. Silence for a while. She was eating, probably. Thorne finished his own pasta, cleaned up his dishes trying to give her privacy, even though privacy was already gone, had been gone since his first night here. At 8:15 p.m., he heard her moving around, dishes being washed, TV turning off. Then footsteps and the sound of wine being poured, second glass probably. Thorne closed his laptop, got up from the couch, and walked to the bedroom. He stood by the wall. This was becoming a habit, a bad habit. He should stop. He pressed his palm against the plaster instead, like he could somehow offer support through 6 inches of horsehair and history. Through the wall, he could hear her settling in. Music starting, jazz tonight, something with piano, melancholy and beautiful. Then at 8:47 p.m., he got his answer to why the silence had felt expectant. A knock on her door, 3 sharp raps that Thorne heard clearly through the wall. Through the wall, he heard Violette moving. Footsteps toward the door. A pause. She was probably looking through the peephole, checking who was there. The lock turning, door opening.
Julian.
Her voice was flat. Surprised, but not pleased. Resigned, maybe, like she'd known this was coming eventually. Thorne's hand clenched against the wall.
Can I come in? It's late, I know, but Can we talk, please?
Male voice, smooth, practiced. The kind of voice that was used to getting what it wanted. A pause. Long enough that Thorne thought maybe she'd say no, close the door, tell him to leave her alone. But then,
5 minutes.
no, don't let him in. Tell him to leave. You don't owe him anything. The thoughts were loud in Thorne's head, urgent and completely useless because she couldn't hear them and wouldn't listen if she could. The door closed. Footsteps, 2 sets now, heavier and lighter, moving into the apartment. Living room probably, where they'd have space where they could sit on opposite ends of a couch and pretend this was reasonable.
I'm sorry about last night. I was drunk. I was an asshole. You didn't deserve that. Any of it.
Silence.
I said things I didn't mean. Things I can't take back. But Vi, I want to try. I want to be better. I want to be what you need.
Thorne stood frozen in his bedroom, every muscle tensed, listening to Julian deploy his arsenal of apologies.
You didn't just say things. You called me frigid. You said I was cold. Controlling. You said a lot of things that sounded pretty damn meant at the time.
Her voice was careful, controlled. Not quite accepting the apology, but not quite rejecting it either.
I was drunk.
Being drunk doesn't create thoughts, Julian. It just removes the filter.
Silence. Julian regrouping, probably, trying to figure out how to spin this.
Okay. You're right. I was angry. I am angry. Not at you. At the situation. At us. At how we've become. We used to be good together, Vi. Remember?
I remember you being on time occasionally. I remember conversations that weren't just about your work or your friends or your problems. But that was 3 years ago, Julian. People change.
Then let's change back. Let's remember why we worked.
More silence. Thorne could imagine Violette sitting there, wineglass in hand probably, weighing her words, trying to be diplomatic while also being done.
We worked because I made it work. I accommodated your schedule. I listened to your problems. I showed up to your events. I played the role you needed me to play. And when I needed you to show up for me, you didn't.
That's not fair.
Fair? You want to talk about fair? Fair is working 14-hour days and coming home to a partner who appreciates it instead of resenting it. Fair is having someone ask how my day was before launching into their own problems. Fair is not being called frigid because I don't want to have sex after 3 conference calls and a board meeting where my own father undermined me in front of the entire executive team.
Her voice rising now, that edge he'd heard before coming back.
Jesus Christ, Violette!
What? You wanted to talk. Let's talk. Let's have the honest conversation we should have had 6 months ago.
Thorne's heart was hammering. He shouldn't be hearing this. This was private, intimate, the kind of relationship post-mortem that people had behind closed doors. But he was hearing it, and he couldn't make himself leave.
Fine. You want honesty? Here's honesty. You're impossible to please. Nothing I do is ever good enough. I bring you flowers, wrong kind. I make reservations, wrong restaurant. I try to be supportive. I'm not supportive enough. You've set the bar so high that no one could reach it, and then you act surprised when I get frustrated.
I set the bar at basic human decency and partnership. That's not high. That's baseline.
You set the bar at perfection. At mind reading. at somehow knowing what you need without you ever actually telling me what you need.
I shouldn't have to tell you that calling me frigid is hurtful.
You shouldn't be so fucking sensitive.
The words cracked through the air like a whip. Silence. Terrible, stretched silence. When Violette spoke again, her voice was very quiet, very controlled.
Get out.
Fi,
Get out of my apartment, now.
come on, you're overreacting.
I said get out.
Footsteps, heavy, male, heading toward the door, but they stopped. Julian wasn't leaving.
You know what your problem is? You're so busy being perfect that you forgot how to be human. You're so busy running that company that you forgot how to actually live. You're going to end up alone, Violette. 50 years old in some sterile apartment with nothing but your quarterly reports to keep you warm.
His voice was different now, uglier, all that smooth charm stripped away to reveal something mean underneath.
Better alone than with someone who makes me feel worthless.
I never made you feel worthless. I made you feel real. I was the only person in your life who didn't treat you like some untouchable ice queen. I saw the real you. And yeah, sometimes I didn't like what I saw. Sometimes you were cold. Sometimes you were controlling. Sometimes you were so wrapped up in being Augustus Westbrook's daughter and Westbrook International COO that you forgot you were supposed to be my girlfriend.
Past tense. I was your girlfriend. I'm not anymore.
More silence. Then Julian, quieter now, but no less cutting.
You'll regret this. When you're alone at Christmas. When you're alone at every event where everyone else has a date and you're standing there by yourself pretending you chose this. When you're lying in bed at night, realizing that your company doesn't love you back and your father will never be proud of you no matter how hard you work and you pushed away the one person who actually wanted you.
Get out.
Violette's voice cracked like breaking glass.
I'm going and I'm not coming back. Good luck finding someone else willing to put up with your shit. Good luck finding someone who doesn't care that you're too busy for an actual relationship. Good luck.
A door slamming, so hard the entire wall vibrated. So hard Thorne felt it through his hand, still pressed against plaster. Then silence. Absolute crushing silence. Thorne stood frozen, heart hammering, every instinct screaming at him to do something. But what? Knock on her door? Hi, I heard you fighting through the wall. Are you okay? That would require explaining how he heard, why he was listening, how he was able to listen, and how much he knew about her life after 3 days of living here. He couldn't do that. So he stood there uselessly while on the other side of the wall, Violette's breathing came fast and shallow. She was having a panic attack, or trying very hard not to have one. Thorne heard her moving, pacing probably, trying to walk off the adrenaline, trying to calm down, trying to not fall apart after having Julian say every cruel thing he'd been thinking for the last year of their relationship. At 9:15 p.m. her phone rang. She answered on the first ring.
Sloane.
Just the name. No greeting. Like she'd been waiting for this call.
He was here. Julian, he just left.
Pause while Sloane responded.
No, I didn't take him back. But God, Sloane, the things he said.
Her voice was shaking.
He said I'm going to die alone. He said I'm cold and controlling and impossible to please. He said...
She broke off. When she spoke again, she was crying.
What if he's right? What if I am too focused on work? What if I am impossible? What if there's something fundamentally broken in me that makes me unlovable?
Thorne's chest hurt.
I know. I know you don't think that. But everyone else does. My father thinks I'm too emotional for business. Julian thinks I'm too cold for a relationship. My mother thinks I should compromise more. Harrison thinks I'm a joke. And I'm just...
She was fully crying now, words coming between sobs.
I'm so tired, Sloane. I'm tired of trying to be perfect. Tired of never being enough. Tired of men telling me I'm too much and not enough simultaneously.
Long pause while Sloane talked her down. Thorne wished he could hear both sides of the conversation, wished he could hear whatever Sloane was saying that was making Violette's breathing slow down slightly.
Thank you. I don't know what I'd do without you.
Pause.
Yeah. Tomorrow. Lunch. I need to vent before I do something stupid like call him and apologize for making him feel bad about calling me frigid.
She laughed, wet, bitter, the kind of laugh that was closer to crying than humor.
Love you too. Good night.
She hung up. Silence. Thorne heard her moving around. Cabinet opening. More wine being poured. Generous pour again. Glass being raised. Drinking. Then footsteps toward what he was pretty sure was her bedroom. A door closing. Silence. Thorne stood there for another minute, hands still pressed against the wall like he could somehow transmit support through plaster and horsehair and a century of other people's sadness. Then he forced himself to move. Back to the living room. Back to the couch. He opened his laptop, stared at his emails without seeing them, and tried very hard not to think about Violette crying alone in her apartment while Julian's words echoed in her head. You're going to die alone. You're cold. You're impossible. No one will ever love you. All lies. All designed to hurt. All probably working. At 10:30 p.m., Thorne gave up pretending to work. He brushed his teeth, changed into sweats, climbed into bed. Lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening. Through the wall, nothing. She'd gone to bed, or was lying there awake like he was, staring at her own ceiling, replaying the fight, wondering if Julian was right. He wasn't right. Thorne knew this with a certainty that was probably irrational, given that he didn't actually know Violette beyond stolen fragments through a wall. But he knew it anyway. She wasn't cold. She was guarded. There was a difference. She wasn't controlling. She was competent. Again, different. She wasn't impossible. She just had standards. And Julian had failed to meet them repeatedly and blamed her for noticing. Thorne turned on his side, facing the wall, and wished there was some way to tell her this. Some way to reach through plaster and space and tell her that Julian was wrong, that she was allowed to have standards, that being good at her job didn't make her unlovable. But there wasn't. So he lay there in the dark, listening to silence, and eventually, finally fell asleep. At 2:47 a.m., Thorne woke to a sound. Crying. Through the wall. Soft, muffled, like Violette was crying into her pillow, trying to be quiet, trying not to disturb anyone. But he heard. He heard everything. Thorne lay there in the dark, eyes open, listening to a woman he'd never properly met cry herself back to sleep, and he made a decision. Tomorrow. Tomorrow he'd do something. He didn't know what yet, but something. Because hearing her like this, broken and alone and believing Julian's lies, was unbearable. And if the walls were able to carry her sadness, maybe they were able to carry something else. Kindness, support, the knowledge that someone, somewhere gave a damn. Even if she didn't know who, even if she never knew. At 3:15 a.m., the crying stopped. At 3:30 a.m., Thorne finally fell back asleep. Tomorrow, he thought. Tomorrow changes.
Thanks for listening, and please subscribe so you don't miss an episode.
And for early access and bonus episodes, become a Patreon supporter today.